Hey, we're live with the Luke Onslow Hunters Association. Just stand by for a minute while we get the camera system going. We got Nathan on the camera, so just pay attention. Let's see what we got. All right, Nathan, we're live on Facebook and TikTok.
All right.
Go for it.
Good deal.
All right, everybody. Nathan, short floor, have at it.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to keep y'all waiting. The majority leader in the North Carolina House rescheduled a meeting with me at 5 p.m. And so when he calls, I got to answer. Brendan Jones is a friend of mine, and so I was a little bit late getting down here. So I apologize to keep y'all waiting, but it's good to be back in Duplin County. And this gentleman asked me if I minded being recorded. I definitely don't. Anything I say is something I've said before.
Any questions you've got, put them in the chat. I'll do my best to ask them for you.
So I'm glad to have y'all here in the room and a larger audience, I guess, on the internet. I don't have TikTok or Facebook, so I don't even know if I'll ever see that video, but I do understand those are helpful tools.
That was YouTube.
Okay. I do have a YouTube account. So, but thank y'all for having me. Since we're before a larger audience on the internet, I want to give y'all a brief history of the Sporting Dog Association and how I got involved in it. So I'm 34 years old. I've been lobbying for about 8 years. That's as long as I've been an attorney. And before that, I worked at the General Assembly, worked for Senator Phil Berger and a couple of other members in different capacities. And so that's how I got into politics and learned a little bit about the members of the General Assembly, met a few of them. I've been hanging around the building since my childhood because my grandmother was a longtime state employee and worked for several different state senators. So several years ago, a business partner of mine purchased a consulting firm from Joe and Henry McLeese, who used to represent y'all for many, many years. And Jackson Stansel is that partner of mine. We still work together. He's part of your lobbying team, and his son, KJ Stansel, is also on the lobbying team. So the three of us do this work together. But he came to me several years ago and said, I've got this new book of business, and I got a plan for how to handle most of it, but I don't hunt with dogs, and I'm not an attorney. So would you be willing to take a look at it? And I've hunted with dogs a good bit, not as much as most of y'all in this room, but I do enjoy bear hunting with dogs, and then definitely enjoy bird dogs, waterfowl. And I grew up a still hunter, but I've got into the dogging later in life, and I love it. I mean, once you do it, you get hooked on it, as y'all know. I mean, it's so much fun. You can't have more fun than running a bear or a deer with dogs. So I have a son. I care about protecting this for the future. For his sake, he's 3 years old, and I want him to be able to come down here and hunt with you guys and have the same experiences that I was able to have as a young man. So I agreed to do it. This isn't the most profitable client, and it's definitely not the easiest. Probably the hardest client I got is the Sporting Dog Association, just because of the issues that come up all over the state and at the state legislature. But it's one that I enjoy doing because I got a personal connection to it. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing it. I'm proud to do it, and I appreciate what y'all do to support the organization. Large groups like the Duplin Onslow Hunt Club, Albemarle Houndsmen, Northern Dismal, Jones County, Lenoir County, Warren County. Those larger houndsman associations are the primary funding source for the statewide association. We do have individual memberships. We've got club memberships. All of those are pieces to the puzzle. But without large donors like y'all, we would not exist, and I wouldn't be able to do this. So I appreciate what y'all do. We're governed by an 11-member board. When Joe and Henry ran the show, it used to be just three folks. It was Joe, Henry, and Keith Loudermilk, who's still our president. But it was just a 3-member small nonprofit board, and they kind of controlled it and did a great job with it, best they could. But we've reorganized. I didn't want to be on the board I wanted to work for you guys. I didn't want to control anything or be a part of any, I'm not on the bank account. I'm totally separate. I'm just a hired person. I'm here as long as the dog hunting community wants me to be here. They can fire me at any time. It's year-to-year contract. So we've got that 11-member board set up, and it's a diverse group from all across the state. It's folks that hunt primarily Gamelands. It's folks that are in established clubs. It's folks from Eastern North Carolina. Tony is on our board, so you got a representative from Duplin Onslow on the board. We've got a couple of folks from Western North Carolina, so it is statewide. It's coon hunters, deer dog hunters, bear dog hunters, squirrel dog hunters. Anybody that hunts with a dog and cares about sporting dogs is represented on the board and in our membership, and we represent everybody who enjoys being with a dog outside, basically. So as soon as I jumped on board with Jackson and later his son KJ, we had issues almost immediately at the General Assembly. One of the big issues we've been fighting for several years is this written permission question that y'all have heard about, whether you need written permission on every tract of land that you hunt. It seems like a good idea to some folks that don't understand how it works in rural parts of the state. You know, the idea that you need permission to hunt on somebody's land, that's universal. We all don't want to be where we're not supposed to be. And you want to work with landowners and be responsible and try to stay off of people's property as best you can. But, of course, dogs don't read signs and dogs don't know property lines. A lot of times you'll have leases strung together, and I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, where you'll have 10, 15,000 acres, and there's a bunch of different tracts of land that are mixed in, and some of those tracts of land have been unoccupied for a long period of time. So you're not going to get written permission or even verbal permission on all those little individual parcels that make up large hunting leases in rural North Carolina. And not to mention the fact that local governments currently can require written permission if they want to. So you're taking away local control by passing a statewide law to require it. Any local government, any county can pass written permission if they want to. And a lot of the counties have done so, but many of the rural ones have not yet. So that needs to stay a local issue because Hyde County is very different than Wake County. And you just shouldn't have the same set of rules for those two different situations. Now, there's other reasons not to do it. Liability is another one. A lot of landowners don't want to give you written permission because they feel like it opens them up to a certain amount of liability. If they've got something in writing that I'm allowing these group of hunters to be on their land, then they've got a higher burden to make sure that land is safe and everything else, whether if you just have kind of a policy where you know who's out there and that you just give them verbal permission, but you don't have anything in writing, then you may not be able to be held to that higher standard as far as who's on your land. So whether it's reality or just perception is reality sometimes. And a lot of landowners just don't want to give that written permission. So that's problematic for hunters. So for all those reasons and several others, this is a big problem for the dog hunting community. We have a good law in place, the Landowner Protection Act. This was carefully negotiated many years ago by Joe and Henry McLeese, several others in the dog hunting community. And some of y'all may have been a part of these discussions back in the 2011 timeframe. But even in the states, even in the counties that don't have written permission is the law if you post your property. That's the law. And so if you want to require written permission, all you have to do is paint your property or post it. And that, you know, I understand that's a burden for some folks that have large tracts of land, but it's a good compromise. And so we're happy with the law how it is. We're advocating for the dog hunting community to get along with their neighbors and do the best they can to be good stewards of the land that they hunt on. But at the same time, we're not looking to have a statewide written permission law because of the so many unintended consequences. And that really would be the beginning of the end for dog hunting. So we fought that successfully thus far. It showed up in a couple of regulatory reform bills. Sometimes at the General Assembly, things will slip in and nobody's really paying attention. And that happened a couple of times in a reg reform bill, and it was able to be, we were able to successfully advocate for it to be removed pretty early on in the process. This last legislative session, it got more traction than it had ever before. Passed one chamber of the General Assembly, the North Carolina Senate, passed the written permission law. And there were several reasons for that. And it's not because every senator that voted for it hates dog hunting. There was a lot of different issues in members' districts from trespassers, just generally speaking. And so there was frustration on the part of some large landowners and farmers and just some regular folks about people trespassing on their land. Dog hunting just kind of got caught up in the mix. That written permission law wasn't necessarily targeted at dog hunters. There were certainly some legislators that sponsored it and promoted it that are not very friendly to dog hunting and are not necessarily on our side of a lot of these issues. But a lot of the folks that voted for it were voting for it just because they wanted to deal with trespassers. They thought it was a step in the right direction. So not every North Carolina senator that voted for that bill is against hunting or against dog hunting. But that bill is a problem for us. And so we went over to we advocated as best we could in the Senate. We had a couple of senators to stick with us, but overall, the Republican caucus decided to vote all pretty much one way in favor of the bill. The Democrats also generally voted in favor of it. I think almost all of them did. So we went over to the House, and we've had some good, productive discussions with the wildlife chairman, the Speaker's office, and several other key House members who are appropriations chairs and in other positions. And I've got a pretty good feel that that bill is not going to pass this year. And so last year was the long session. This year is the short session. Every bill that passed last year is eligible till December 31st of this year. So that bill's eligible all year round. We're going to have to keep an eye on it. But we had a good group come to Raleigh last year and advocate, grassroots advocacy. A lot of folks showed up in orange and, spoke their mind in a respectful way. It was a great day. And then we've been able to do our job as lobbyists behind the scenes to talk with the leadership and just let them know how this is going to affect us. And so we've got a pretty good handle on it so far, but that's not going to be the end of the discussion. Even assuming that we're able to hold on to that for the rest of this year, that's going to come up year after year. And there's going to be other things that come up year after year that are even worse than that. Folks are moving into North Carolina at a record pace. It's a popular place to live and work, and we're the number one state to do business a few years running. So that brings a lot of people from a lot of different states and a lot of folks that don't necessarily understand how it is down here in Duplin County or other parts of rural North Carolina where dog hunting is just a part of the culture. These people are coming from New York, California, everywhere else, and they see a dog run across their large piece of land, and they're thinking, what in the world? Like, this dog shouldn't be on my property. They just don't understand that it's part of the heritage, part of the culture, and they don't understand practically how it all works. So we're going to deal with that, and we're also just dealing with the rapid pace of development that comes with all these people moving in. You've got the urban centers expanding out into rural areas, so places like Franklin County and Granville County, just north of Raleigh, are just different places than they used to be. There's not a lot of large tracts of land strewn together like they used to be. So we're in a changing state, but we've got to do everything we can to hang on to our way of life, and y'all's support and the Sporting Dog Association is an important part of that. We're the only group that has full-time lobbyists like me on the ground. I've got a lot of other clients. I represent AT&T, Honeywell, Syngenta, ECU Health. It's a privilege to represent a lot of different clients. We represent some local governments. Sampson County is a client of ours. And so, when I walk into legislators' offices, they know me. I live down there. I advocate for a lot of different issues in a lot of different ways with all of the members of the General Assembly. I work with Republicans, Democrats. I work with people that like dog hunting and don't like dog hunting. And whether they agree with us on the issues, they know who I am. They know that I'm going to tell them the truth. They know that I care about it. They know that I'm there for the right reasons, and that I'm there trying to be, solution oriented and trying to help in whatever way I can. So, and Jackson and KJ are the same way. They've got a great reputation. So that's the value of the Sporting Dog Association, or one of the values, is having folks like me that live in Raleigh, because you guys are the ones they really need to listen to, because y'all are living it every day, but y'all just simply don't live in Raleigh. You can't be walking the halls of the General Assembly every day that they're in session like we can. And so I'll end this with sort of a call to action, and then I'll give y'all a political update for those who are interested in just kind of where we're headed for the rest of the year, and then I'm happy to take any questions. So as far as what you can do, you've already given us a big contribution. Anybody that wants to join as an individual is also welcome to join. And that goes for anybody online as well. It's a $40 a year membership. So, that's what a nice bottle of wine costs. It's just not that much to join for the whole year as an individual. Small clubs can join for $250. Larger clubs, we ask $500. And then sponsorships are available at various levels. ncsportingdog.com is our website. You can easily pay online, or you can print the membership form and send it to our office. But we need all the help we can get. These issues aren't going away. There's a lot of Gamelands regulations we get involved in as well. There's been one that's been really problematic recently, and a lot of the folks in your following probably know about this one, the Sandhills Gamelands. That is a tough situation, and there's going to be more to come on this. I'll tell you that we're looking at some litigation options right now. Actually, I'm talking to a few attorney friends of mine on some of the options we might have in court to hold the Wildlife Commission accountable for what's going on down there. But there have been a number of Gamelands regulations that we've engaged on all across the state, and a lot of those have been pretty successful. We've been able to negotiate some compromises with the Wildlife Commission, or even get them to give up on some banning, proposals that would ban dog hunting. The Sandhills Gameland situation thus far, they have not been very willing to work with us or engage on it. It has been a very difficult situation. They're proposing splitting up that 62,000 acres into various zones and having permit hunts on them. It's going to be a real problem for the folks that hunt down there. We're continuing to engage with the commission on it. I'm back and forth with Kyle frequently, as well as some of the commissioners. But so far, they just have not been very receptive to a lot of what we've proposed. We've tried to be solution-oriented there, propose different things. Every time we come up with a proposal,
anybody out there watching online,
what we're
I don't have the ability to send out a link.
What I've seen,
share this so that other people will know he's here.
Not really.
This is Nathan from the North Carolina Sporting Dog Association.
We're going to keep working with him on it, but
he's
that's
our lobbyist and our attorney.
Going is for advocacy at the Wildlife.
He represents you if you're a hunter.
The legislative
share the link, please.
The governor's office. So anything you can do, join up, contribute what you can. As far as where we're headed this year, I mentioned this is a short session year. There's been a little bit of a shakeup in the North Carolina General Assembly. Longtime Senate leader Phil Berger, my former employer, is no longer going to be returning to the state Senate. He lost his primary in March to a very popular sheriff in Rockingham County. It was a very close race, 25,000 votes, and he lost by 24, I think, at the end. So if you ever think your vote doesn't count, you can look at that and a number of other races. It really does count. So Senator Berger has been in the legislature since the early 2000s, almost 25 years, or maybe a little more than 25. He's been the Senate leader since 2010. So that is going to shake up the balance of power in the state legislature. The majority caucus elects the leader.
If you're watching
but they
online,
have not had an election
click share
for a
and share
leader
the
since
link.
2010, and that one was
This is
kind
the
of
North
automatic.
Carolina
because
Sporting
Berger was
Dog
the minority
Association.
leader.
We're
Republicans
live
took over, so he's just
at the Duke
automatically in.
Hunters
So
Association.
they've not really had a process like this since really the 1980s. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. I'm not going to comment on who the front runners might be. There's some folks that have publicly declared they're interested. There's some other folks that haven't been out in public that also are interested. But I just hope whoever gets elected has got the right mindset and puts the needs of the state and their people before everybody else, which is what I think Senator Berger has done. I think he's done a tremendous job.
I see you guys in the
And,
comments, but I'm unable
it
to
shows where our
respond
state
right
was
now.
in 2010. We're in debt to the federal government.
I don't
Now
have
we're
enough
number one state
bandwidth to
to do
run my
business.
computer,
I think
so
he's
I'm
done a
streaming on
tremendous
my
job. It's
phone.
unfortunate that he lost that race, but time marches on. In the House, probably the biggest shakeup after the primary was that the era of the moderate Democrat in the House is over. There are no moderate Democrats anymore. Governor Stein and Governor Cooper have targeted each one of the Democrats that were willing to reach across party lines and vote on any type of veto override or budget bill. And they have systematically knocked off each one of those Democrats that would really work with Republicans on different things. And they got the last three of them this cycle. There were three more that Carla Cunningham, Nassif Majid, and Shelley Willingham. And all three of those have been willing to reach across party lines on different issues, whether it's social issues or budget issues. And they lost in their primaries by a pretty big margin, all three of them, because of the money that came in from the governor's campaign and a variety of other places. The Democrat machine united against them, and they were pretty easily defeated. So I don't think you'll see a Democrat in the Senate or the House override a governor's veto next year. That's just my prediction. I don't think it'll happen because they've seen what happens when they do that. Republicans are facing a little bit of headwinds this year just because of the national climate. Whether you love him or hate him, Trump's approval right now is not very good. And there's a lot going on with the war in Iran, the immigration enforcement that, again, whether you love it or hate it, it's just not very popular. And it's not something that's really drawing people in the middle out to vote for Republicans. There's a lot of time till November, and the candidates do matter. What President Trump doesn't dictate everything down the ballot, but the national mood does really contribute to what happens in state politics. And so there's just not a whole lot motivating Republican turnout right now. You've got a really popular Senate candidate on the Democratic side in former Governor Roy Cooper, who has easily won his statewide elections at the same time President Trump was winning them. So you had Democrat Roy Cooper win while President Trump was winning. So Roy Cooper's a pretty formidable opponent. Michael Whatley is kind of a newcomer on the other side. He's well known by Republicans, but not very well known statewide yet. But again, plenty of time. There's a lot of money going to be spent. I've been told that race could reach as high as $600-700 million by the end of it. And it could even get close to $1 billion. It's set to be one of the most expensive U.S. Senate races in the history of the country. So it's just unbelievable the amount of money that pours in from all directions to these U.S. Senate races where they're competitive. And North Carolina is one of those, being a purple state. We've got a few competitive congressional seats, but really the main one is the Don Davis seat. And Representative Congressman Davis has been able to win that election in the past, but his district has gotten a little worse for him. Republicans in the state legislature redrew that. So he's facing Lori Buckhout in a rematch in District 1. And this time the district, President Trump won that district by 11 points, or so, give or take. So Lori Buckhout's got a little bit better chance than last time, but Don Davis is still very popular and still a good candidate. So we just have to see how that shakes out. In the state legislature, Republicans will remain control of both chambers. Even in a good Democrat year, you're still going to have a Republican state House, Republican state Senate. Of course, you have a new Senate leader. And then, but I'm predicting that we probably will not have a veto-proof majority in the state House. You know, right now you've got 71, which is one short, but you had those Democrats that would cross over and vote on a veto override occasionally. And then in the Senate, you have 30 out of 50, which is right on the nose of veto-proof majority, supermajority. I don't think the House will have it next year. I think they're going to lose a few seats. And then in the Senate, it's very possible they lose one or two. I'm not going to make a prediction. You know, Lisa Barnes is probably the one that's in the tightest seat in Nash County. She's a great candidate, and that's a Democrat plus 3 or 4 district, and she's won it in the past. So I would never bet against her. She's a friend of mine. and she's a great advocate for agriculture and for her district. And so I think she's got a good chance. But if Democrats have a really strong year, then you never know. She could be in trouble. So we'll just see what happens. And then as far as the only other race on the ballot I'll mention that nobody really pays attention to, but it's actually probably the most important race on our ballot, is North Carolina Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court of North Carolina, whatever the legislature does, it goes up to the Supreme Court. Somebody litigates it. They can strike it all down. Doesn't matter what it is. So the Supreme Court, we elect the Supreme Court in the state, statewide. They're staggered terms, and we only have one seat up this year. But this is a very important seat because you've got 3 seats up in 2028. So if Democrats can hang on to this seat and keep it to a 5-2 majority Republican, where Democrats hang on to their 2 seats, then they will only have to win 2 out of the 3 in 2028 to take control of the court. The reason why that's important is we have a partisan map drawing process in North Carolina, as y'all might know. Gerrymandering, call it what you want. The majority party draws the maps. It's been that way since the beginning of the state. Democrats drew the maps for 200 years, and they kept power until 2010 when Republicans won on the Democrat-drawn maps in a big shock because Obama was unpopular at the time. We're in a depression, a recession, and so Republicans beat the odds and took over. Then they drew the maps. So now the maps are favorable towards Republicans because of the political process. Now the North Carolina Supreme Court has upheld recently the General Assembly's right to draw the maps, as they always have. But if you had a liberal majority on the Supreme Court, they might take a different view and create some newer standards where the legislature draws the maps, but under certain criteria that, some type of partisan fairness criteria. And so that could be problematic for Republicans. And there's a number of other issues, of course, the court controls, but that one being probably the most important because it could change the balance of power in the state. That's pretty much as far as what I wanted to talk to you about and what's going on. I'm proud to work with you guys and for y'all. As I said, I'm available for anybody that has an issue. I am an attorney. I'm not really a courtroom attorney, but I've got plenty of friends who represent folks in different criminal and civil matters. And so just because of the work I do at the legislature, I don't have the time to really travel across the state and represent folks in court. But I do provide a free consultation to anybody that's a member of the Sporting Dog Association. I've resolved a lot of issues for folks out of court. I've traveled across the state, sat in this room with a group of y'all before. I serve as a mediator in a lot of different cases, and I'm happy to do that free of charge. If I think I can help somebody, I'll make a call and do what I can. If you need formal representation, then I'll usually refer that to somebody else, particularly if it's another part of the state. But I do have a good network of attorneys in my cell phone who I trust. And so if you have any issue whatsoever or get on the wrong side of the law, whether just or not, then give me a call, and I'm always happy to take the call and do what I can for you. But
I've got some questions from some people online, but is there anybody in here that has a question first?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, asking totally out of ignorance, what's driving the justification for locking down the Sandhills Gamelands?
Well, the short answer is there have been some issues on the Sandhills Gamelands, and nobody is disputing the fact, our guys aren't disputing it either, that there's been some renegade groups, I guess I would call them, to put it politely, that are running all over everybody's stuff down there. And so there's been a level of criminal activity and violence and frustration that is unique as far as the Sandhills Gamelands goes. Now, I'll try to be as polite as I can to the Wildlife Commission. We brought a bunch of solutions to the table from the very beginning, and we engaged with them very, very early on. Nobody in our group was against a permit system, and so it was actually my suggestion. They came up with a map to ban hunting in different areas, and it was picking and choosing winners and losers, and it would have really restricted it all to the very center of the Gamelands. And then, it wasn't a good map, and it was completely arbitrary. So we suggested, instead of trying to draw lines around different property owners, and it was all political too. There were certain areas you could tell because of certain individuals, they had kind of drawn it out. We said, instead of that, why don't you just have some accountability and have a permit system that's not restrictive, but who's hunting there. People, because that's the way it used to work, actually, generations back. People would go to the field trial house, they'd sign up, they'd leave their ID, and so who's hunting there. And for folks that commit criminals, if they get written up or convicted, then they don't get a permit the following year. So that was our suggestion. The Wildlife Commission took that and decided that they were going to have a permit system. Right now, the way they have it, there's going to be 13 parties for all 62,000 acres of land, which is absolutely unreal. There is no justification for that level of restriction.
Explain that to me. 13 parties.
That's what they're proposing. It's not final yet. It's still being negotiated. but there's going to be parties between 10 and 40. They haven't worked out how the lottery system is exactly going to work yet, but they have said that right now they're thinking about 13 parties total each week. These are weekly hunts.
So my question is, I'm going to jump in on your question. So my question is, if I want to say I wake up Saturday morning and I want to go hunt Sandhills,
You can't. Not with dogs.
I can.
You would have to apply for a permit in advance, have a party put together, and again, they haven't finalized this rule, so we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I just know what they're thinking at this time, because I've been told from the commission that they're thinking about doing 13 parties total. None of this is final, and we're hoping they're going to make it a little bit better.
I hear what you're saying about it's not final. I'm just trying to understand it. So I decided to get my cousins together. There's a whole bunch of us in here, by the way, and we decide we're going to go out and hunt. We get a permit. There's only 13 permits for that day.
Each zone, so they're splitting it up into different zones, and each zone has a different number of permits. Some of the zones have only one permit available, one party permit. Other zones have 3 or 4, but it's a total of 13.
And that's for the whole year, or it's for each day?
Each week.
Each week.
That's what they're thinking. Again, not final, but they're
So I'd
thinking
have to apply for a permit every week.
You have to apply for a permit in advance for every week that you would want to hunt in whichever zone that you want to hunt. And you could apply for all of the zones, theoretically, I suppose.
Is that just the dog hunting?
Just deer dog hunting. Yep, still hunting, no permit. So they're treating one type of hunting different than
So
another.
if I take my rabbit dogs down there, which I've got rabbit dogs, I take my rabbit dogs, I can run my rabbit dogs?
Track of.
That's a slippery slope right there.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to enforce. How are you going to know who's still hunting and who's hunting with dogs? If you're standing still but the dogs run through, are you still hunting or dog hunting? I don't know how they're going to work that out. And again, like if you say you got rabbit dogs, but the dogs are running whatever, how are you going to know what type of dogs you got?
Well, my dogs are kind of dumb. They might run a rabbit. They kind of like possums too, so.
You know, that's a problem the Wildlife Commission has created for themselves. I don't know how they're going to deal with that. It's impossible to enforce.
A friend of mine is a retired, fairly high-ranking officer with the Wildlife Resource Commission. He's retired now and kind of speak his mind.
Yeah,
He said it's a nightmare.
I'm sure it will be.
He said it'll be an enforcement nightmare. Glad he's retired.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is the Wildlife Commission has told us all along we don't have the officers to enforce the law, so that's why we got to come up with these restrictions. But the restrictions they put in place require more officers than ever before to enforce them because of the way that they're written. So it's a little bit of a paradox, and you know, all we can do as a group is advocate the best we can, try to come to the table with solutions, and then there, like I said, there may be some options in the courtroom related to the Sandhills Gamelands, but we'll just have to see how that plays
It's
out.
good to hear that you're talking about taking them to court, but I want to make sure I understand. The statement is we don't have enough officers to support and enforce the laws. So we need to make more laws and more rules. Because we don't have enough people to enforce the ones we got, we need to make more.
You said
Are
it.
you actually saying that's the
You
argument?
said it, not me. Yeah.
I'm not a smart man. Matter of fact, I'm from Tick Bite, North Carolina.
I
That's
know
near
where
Bug
Tick Bite
Tussle,
is.
Skeeter Pond, and Dog Patch and all that stuff. But that don't make horse sense.
Yeah. And what's very concerning is, of course, if they use this playbook on the Sandhills, what's to stop them from using it in Caswell County or somewhere else, these large tracts of land? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a pilot program. If they get this to stick, it's going to go everywhere.
Yeah.
If you can buy a meal, you'll be able to buy a meal. Your club can buy a hot dog from it. If you can't, you're not going to.
Well, I will say the permit cost is low. You know, that's actually set in state law, not defending them or anything, but so that right now that's not an issue. I guess it could be in the future, but it would have to take a change in the state law for that.
There's a number of permits they have to issue written in state law.
No. So what they
So they give
did,
you one permit for the whole game land, and they've done their due diligence.
so the Wildlife Commission has to go through the rulemaking process to pass game lands regulations. This means they publish the rule, they go through notice and public comment, and then they publish a final rule, and then they implement it. So their rule that they published basically just said, and I'm paraphrasing, that we're going to have a permit system for deer dog hunting. That's all it said. It never mentioned that we're going to split the game lands up into zones. It never mentioned how restrictive it was going to be. All of those decisions were made after the notice and public comment period was over. And so to me, I think there's some legal issues there. I think that's a violation of the Administrative Procedure Act, and that was what I commented publicly on behalf of the Sporting Dog Association. You're supposed to give the public real notice of what you're doing when you're going through the rulemaking process. And dog hunting is banned on certain small parts of the game lands that are really probably not problematic other than the fact that they didn't go through the process. Like, you can't propose a rule that says we're going to have a permit system, but not give any indication on how bad it's going to be, no indication you're going to split it up into different geographic zones, and then no indication you're going to ban it in certain areas. There wasn't an opportunity for the public to comment on any of that. That was all negotiated in the Wildlife Commission behind the scenes after the fact, after the notice and public comment period. So that's just one of the couple areas where I feel like they are a little bit vulnerable. So we're having a few conversations. Engaging in litigation with a government agency is a complex thing. It's not something to be entered into lightly. I'm not making any promises, but I can tell you that I have had some conversations with a few of my friends who deal with constitutional litigation and government agencies and the Administrative Procedure Act. And just like any other issue, we're exploring any opportunity to be helpful. So that's one of them.
I want to ask a question to the people in attendance. If you knew about a meeting that was held between Wildlife Resource Commission about the Sandhills Gamelands before that meeting took place, say aye.
You won't know unless he calls. You don't know what they do. They don't call nobody. I've been there too many times for bear hunting and deer hunting. They don't call you and let you know. We got to get through Joe and Henry, or now Nathan and Jackson.
Well, they didn't make an announcement. I understand there was a meeting.
They did
and
not.
Certain people got invited.
So I didn't do any of the inviting to the meeting. I'm not in charge of any
I'm not
of that.
saying you invited them.
Do any of the inviting to the meeting. I'm not in charge of any
I'm
of
not
that.
saying you invited them.
Yeah.
I'm saying that Wildlife invited them.
So the Wildlife Commission in this case, and I guess they've done it this way with some other game lands regulations, they put together stakeholder meetings of folks that live in the area or hunt in the area. And I don't know how they come up with the invitations, but it's just based on who they know hunts there. If you give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess they're doing the best they can to engage the folks they knew or in the area or had an interest or leased land nearby. I think they did their best to engage the folks that had leases that bordered the game lands. Whether all those folks are there, I don't know. But certainly not everybody that hunts the Sandhills Gamelands were included in those meetings. It's the entire state's gamelands. So, but those, the public notice is what they publish online. Like they're supposed to follow the procedure in the law where they publish the notice of the rule, and then they have these public engagement sessions, which they refuse to do in person. I asked them to have those in person, and they wouldn't. They did them on Zoom. They did two. One of them had technical difficulties, so it had to get rescheduled. So there was very minimal attendance in either one of those, but especially the second one when it had to get rescheduled last minute. So those are the opportunities where they should be thoroughly vetting what they're doing, talking to people. That's where the public should be able to get engaged. They should be able to go down to the Wildlife Commission, meet in person. They should be able to have a rule text in front of them that is what the actual rule is going to be so that they can talk about it intelligently and know how it might affect them. But in this case, that's just not the way it played out.
What's so aggravating in this case, to me, is if the ones that did attend the Zoom, but after the meeting, they go back and do something else to contradict what they had to do.
Yeah.
And that's bullshit. I'm just telling y'all straight up. I'm just going to tell you just like it is.
And I'll mention, regardless of, even if they had a perfect level of stakeholder engagement and talked to every single person that hunted the Sandhills Gamelands, they don't have to listen to none of them. There's no requirement to listen to the public.
That's the problem.
That's the point I was making about the permit. They do one permit for the whole game land.
They could do whatever they want. And as they go through that rulemaking process, they're supposed to provide notice and public comment. They don't even have to listen to the public comments. The commissioners are accountable to the people that appoint them, the governor and the two leaders in each chamber. A lot of the commissioners are not engaged on each individual game lands regulation. Like, there's a lot of them that don't know about the Sandhills Gamelands, that haven't been engaged on it. It's only a few that are really paying attention because they care about that particular area. So a lot of it is the staff, and that's the nature of any government agency. But when you have folks that are not directly accountable to a voter, then you get worse outcomes. When you have something moved through the General Assembly, if folks don't like it in a particular area, they're going to vote that member of the legislature out, or, there is some accountability in the ballot box. But when you're dealing with any government agency, and this is not just the Wildlife Commission, I mean, we deal with all of them on behalf of various clients. There's no accountability. These are folks that are in these staff positions and commissioners themselves, and it's very challenging to hold them accountable.
You can't vote them out, because Don Davis, when we put money in to vote out, and we voted him.
Well,
Made a new position.
he's one that I want to talk about too. I got a question for you. You mentioned some legislation early in your speech, and you said it wasn't going to move forward. Will you redress that again and mention the legislation? Tell us what number it is, that kind of stuff, where it's at.
And so, again, my feeling is it's not going to move forward. This bill is eligible, and it could move forward at any time. It's Senate Bill 220.
Senate Bill 220.
Senate Bill 220 requires written permission on every tract of land that you hunt statewide. And it passed the Senate with just a small amount of formal opposition. There were some senators tried to work on it behind the scenes, but at the end of the day, it was a very strong bipartisan vote to pass that bill. It got over to the House, and the leadership in the House Republican caucus at this hour do not have an interest in hearing it. That is my understanding. But again, it's eligible for consideration all year long. So
Until when?
Until December 31st, when they gavel out of the 25-26 legislative session.
Okay.
And then even if we beat it back this year, it can get filed again in either chamber by any member that wants to file it. This issue has come up cycle after cycle, year after year, and so it's not a dead issue at any point. It's something that we're going to have to continue to advocate and educate. And I do feel good about our chances of hanging on to it for this year, partly because we're in an election year and Republicans are facing those headwinds. And a lot of dog hunters are Republicans. So the House of Representatives is not going to want to split up the Republican caucus on an issue that, is of minimal benefit to them politically. You might make a few large landowners happy, but you're going to make a lot of dog hunters unhappy in an election year when we already have enough problems, or Republicans do, I should say. So that's for that reason I feel good about our chances, but it's something that's going to come up year after year.
Well, there's some large landowners represented by this organization.
Yeah.
I mean, some large landowners.
Yeah, I understand that too.
I would like to say too, that's why it's so important on your local level, because your local county commissioners pass a law, as long as it's more stringent than the state, and make it a law. You don't want the right people sitting up there, because they can push you just that quick.
Yeah.
So it's so important that you stay involved with your local legislators as well, and if you get them on your side, they can help fight this bill by signing a resolution. We don't want this.
Yeah.
That speaks numbers up there.
Yeah, this same fight's playing out in every individual county at the same time it's playing out in the state legislature. And of course, I can't be in every county, so I rely on you guys to tell me what's going on in the various parts of the state.
That's the problem with hunt clubs. They don't realize that how bad things can get, and you can't explain it to them. Tommy has, I'm pretty sure, I know him in jail. We talked, and we would be on page. We do that all out there, getting do nothing good. Soon something come up, they'll call you and say, look, what you do about it? What the hell I think you go around and do about y'all? Y'all help us do it for a while when you ain't done it.
The magnet come completely out.
Oh, it did.
And get the young people involved, and you've got to get them involved, because if you don't, it ain't gonna be there. So, at my age, Virginia's can fall out any time, but it ain't on my side. I can tell you that. Jeff, yours, I mean, the ones that keeps taking the load is not gonna be there now.
You ain't got to be your age. You can get hit by a car like I did, and you're gone.
But I'm saying, you got to stand, and when I saw him and Raleigh up there, I was walking the halls tonight to work, remember, I passed you and all. I mean, I was up there fighting, trying to get our delegation from Oslo County, this is the way we want you to be. And it's so important that you have your county commissioners, each county involved in it.
Newman also weren't involved in that meeting when people went up there, because we would understand that.
Well,
There wasn't gonna be much to it.
Well, the dates, and the reason a lot of that is because this organization had it beat to start with.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
And so, if you go up there raising Cain with your legislators in Raleigh, they're gonna turn against you right then. So there's a time to speak and a time not to speak.
Well, there's always a balance. You know, grassroots advocacy is an extremely powerful tool. It's probably the most powerful tool that we have in the political space. There's no question about that. An army of people coming up to the legislature means something to every one of those guys. But at the same time, when you're on the winning side of an issue and you got assurances from leadership that this is going to play out in the way that you want, then you need to be careful about how you advocate and how you use that grassroots tool. Because if you get the wrong group of people in that large crowd to say the wrong thing to those folks that are on your side, then things could change. So, you know, everything is a balance. There's a place for grassroots advocacy we've got to have together on. I think it would be good for us to have rallies in Raleigh, not in opposition to a bill, but come into Raleigh as a really large group, tremendously large, to celebrate the culture and to educate legislators. And not up there fighting a bill, but just this is who we are, this is of great importance to us and our children, is how we live, and meet with your local delegation, have a big rally. And, I mean, we could have a tremendous crowd up there, and it would all be pretty positive, and I think that would be pretty impactful. So that's something we're all going to look at for the 27 long session, for sure.
That was one thing I wanted to touch on. I think it's very important that every time that we talk for our politicians, that we're just not backing them over hunting.
Yeah.
Tell them how good a job they're doing for the schools or, for our economy or whatever.
Yeah, and you need to get to know them, because the first time you see them, you don't want the first time you see them to be asking for something.
That's right.
And it's all about relationships, and so you need to, support their campaigns if you can. Show up to their events. Put out signs for the ones that you believe in and that you like. Spend the time to volunteer in the campaign and support them. And then when you walk into their office and they know that you invested and you care about them, and they'll be more likely to listen. I want to mention one other issue that I know a lot of folks have been following, and that's the federal farm bill recently.
I was getting ready to ask you about that.
Yeah, so that issue is in a pretty good place at this hour due to grassroots advocacy. And before we even engaged as an association, there was enough noise about this issue to have a real impact in Washington, D.C. So several weeks ago, I got a bunch of calls all at once from a variety of different people from all across the state that let me know about the amendment in the House Agriculture Committee, which is to add the Greyhound Protection Act into the federal farm bill. Now, in spirit, that law has some merit. They don't want greyhound racing. There's only 2 tracks in the United States.
In the United States,
in
there's
West
2
Virginia.
tracks.
But, greyhound racing, not very popular, and so they wanted to outlaw greyhound racing, but the Animal Rights activists slipped in a provision in there that prohibited live lures and open field coursing, and it didn't define it. And so the way that was written would have 100% affected almost everything you do with a dog, whether it's a bird dog, a deer dog, or any type of dog. You train dogs with live animals. I mean, the duck hunting community is even bigger than the deer dog hunting community. You train duck dogs with live ducks at some point. And so that law would have outlawed that, and it would have outlawed field trials. Chasing live animals as a part of a field trial would have been outlawed. So it was very problematic. And I made several calls. I have a relation. I'm not a federal lobbyist. I don't get paid to lobby D.C., but I do know many of our congressmen just because they come from state politics and just kind of friendships over the years. So I called a few of them and their staff, and they, most of them knew about the issue. And this was several weeks ago, so they were alerted pretty early on to it.
1 million people saw my video.
There were a lot of folks, and I'm sure you had an impact on the fact that they heard.
Over 1 million people saw
So they had already heard from their constituents and were working on a fix. And so over the next week or two, I stayed in touch, and what was agreed is that there would be a correction made in the House Rules Committee that would fix that portion of the Greyhound Protection Act to where it would not have those broader consequences. Now, we haven't had a federal farm bill since 2018, I'll tell you that. I don't know if we're going to have one this year or not. I wouldn't bet my house on it, that's for sure. It's running into some trouble right now over completely different issues, pesticide labeling and other things, and year-round E15. There is all kinds of issues that the farm bill contains. You got food stamps, everything else in it, and then not to mention the good stuff like the assistance for farmers, updating the crop schedules and the prices. There's a political will to get a farm bill done, but just like everything in D.C., there's a lot of roadblocks on a big omnibus bill like that. Hasn't been passed since 2018, and so we'll see if it can make it this year. But I have a good degree of confidence that if we have a farm bill, farm act, I should say, they call it a farm bill at the state level, that provision will be corrected. But it's, again, something just like Senate Bill 220. You never take your eye off the ball. You get assurances, and just like Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. And just, something we'll stay on top of. I do plan to reach out to our 2 United States senators, who, by the way, are very friendly on dog hunting issues. If you walk into Senator Tillis's office, he's got a bear rug that he killed in front of dogs right behind his couch. I mean, he's very friendly towards hunting. Senator Budd owns a gun shop. I mean, great Second Amendment guy. So love them or hate them, those two are friendly on wildlife and hunting issues, and their staff is as well. So we'll reach out to them and make sure that whatever comes over to the Senate, if it is in good shape, is preserved, or if for some reason they backtrack and it doesn't get fixed in the House, then we'll work on it in the Senate. But I do feel like it's going to get fixed in the House just because enough noise was created. And this was nationwide. This was groups from all across the country.
I know I talked to New Mexico, Alabama, Mississippi, Virginia, several more houndsman organizations came on and talked to me just about the Farm Bill.
Yeah.
Duck hunters, it was everybody. I had some duck hunters that argued with me and told me it wouldn't affect duck hunting. I said, you need to read it.
Well, it just depends on how it's enforced, but I wouldn't leave anything like that to chance. I mean, yeah, worded the way it was, I definitely had some concerns, and I'm glad that it's going to get fixed. But yeah, I was on the phone with North and South Carolina and Georgia and our surrounding states, and everybody in Mississippi, and everybody was pretty unified in opposition, and the delegations were pretty good about responding too. I mean, we went to.
So I want to give credit where credit's due. Don Davis voted to put the Greyhound bill stuff into the Farm Bill.
So Don Davis.
Am I correct?
So I'm not 100% sure of how it all played out. Don Davis was a co-sponsor on the original bill. Don Davis was not intending to outlaw dog hunting by putting that in there. I can tell you that for a fact. This is something that the animal rights activists slipped in. This is not something where I don't know if any member of Congress, and I can't say this for sure, but I can speak for Don Davis because I've talked to Don Davis and his staff. Don Davis
has not responded to me. I asked him for comment. He is yet to respond.
So I'll let him speak for himself, but I can say with a pretty great degree of confidence that he was not intending to outlaw hunting with dogs or affect regular dog training by supporting that resolution. And one of the reasons I know that is as soon as these concerns were raised up to his office, they were very responsive. I mean, he has a good ag staffer, Nathaniel, who I communicate with on a lot of different issues, and he was very responsive. And so if it had been something the congressman was trying to promote, I think we would have seen a different response. When this was raised and the issues were presented to him, he got in motion pretty quick to be a part of the solution. But at the same time, these are tough, and I'm not trying to just defend Don Davis altogether, but these are tough issues for those guys. They're looking at thousands of bills all the time, and they can't read them all. The staff reads them, and it's hard to, that's just one line. I mean, I can see even as a really good staff member reading that and not understanding what a field trial, there's probably very few people in D.C. that have been to a field trial. I mean, they don't know how it works. They don't know the live lure training or the open field coursing. They're not thinking about those words in the way that the dog hunting community is thinking about it. And they're reading it in the context of the Greyhound bill. So it's a sly move by the animal rights activists. I do think it was real slippery on their part, and I do think it was intentional. I do not think it was intentional for Don Davis or his staff to put something together that had that broad of an impact. That's my personal opinion.
Any more questions? Now the time. Pay a man to help him. He helps us.
Has been brought up anything that the Wildlife Commission has to be voted on instead of giving that right to somebody? I think one guy over there, he may not be on the board. He was on there one night. But, I think the senator or whatever, I think everybody has a right to vote who controls the wildlife in North Carolina.
So there is a bill floating around out there that would make the Wildlife Commission more directly accountable to the people. Unfortunately, I don't see that going anywhere, and it's not because we wouldn't support it. For various reasons, the legislature just does not have the appetite, and they have not in the past to change the structure of the Wildlife Commission. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's been it's been structured the same way for quite a long time. So it's just a tough nut to crack. It's something we need to continue to advocate for. You know, we see the impacts, Sandhills Gamelands being the most recent and probably the worst example. That's the worst example I've seen of a government agency abusing its power since I've been lobbying. I mean, I was real disappointed in how that went and how it continues to go. There's still an opportunity for them to correct the course, and it's not final what they're doing yet, but it's not headed in a good direction. So I would love to see some more accountability for the Wildlife Commission. If there's any way to bring that about, I'd be happy to be a part of it on behalf of this group, and just because I think it's a good thing. But right now, I don't really see a pathway.
I'm just saying, has it ever been brought up?
It's been discussed. Yeah, it's definitely been discussed. There has been legislation filed, but it hadn't made it anywhere.
Not represented in wildlife.
Yeah. We do have a few friends among the appointed commissioners, more than y'all might think, but there's quite a few that are not so friendly as well. Yeah, that's a whole separate issue. Well, we can do a whole other podcast on that one.
One of our representatives told me point blank that if they ever got a Republican governor, that he would put a bill in to right to retrieve. He said, but it ain't no sense in putting it in because they won't veto it as soon as it gets through the governor. They won't go nowhere.
I think there is a pathway at some point to get the right to retrieve in North Carolina, but that is a challenging issue. Yeah, it's challenging.
I'm too old for it. I know that.
I think it's very reasonable, and something Virginia's lived with for a long time. It's worked out fine, and I think it would be helpful to landowners and dog hunters if people could go get their dogs.
Well, Nathan, sporting dogs is the same way with the hunting association. We've got to figure some way to get people involved. Jeff's tried, I've tried, he's tried. So far, 90% of what's in here is from Hubcats Hunting Club. He's pushing them to come, but
you leave the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink, bitch.
sometimes he needs to get his hand under the water so he'll pull it a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you what, they need to get the pandemic killed us just like it did everything else. I mean, we used to have on a scheduled meeting, we'd have 125 to 148 people. We feel this field full, but it's, ever since then, of course, we've heard a lot of things that's never been done.
I remember having cut service too, so we can have that there.
Well, Nathan, I've been up to Raleigh with these grassroots organizations myself. And I will tell you, trying to get people to go is almost like trying to pull hen's teeth.
It can be hard.
Because they'll tell you, why have you got to have it during the week? Why you got to have it during the week when I got to work? Well, that's when government operates.
Yeah.
But the same guy that told me, why have you got to have it during the week? So he can take off work to go hunting, but he can't take off work to save hunting. And that's part of our problem. I have people call me and say, can you start a chapter in our area to support this stuff? I'm like, why don't you join? Hubcat was in on that conversation. Where you at, Hubcat? Right there. He was in on that conversation. Guys like, can you start a new group? We need a group here to represent us. We got one. Duke and Onslow Hunters Association, NC Sport Dog. These are people in Onslow County. And they ain't here tonight.
Yeah.
As long as somebody else will do it for them, that's what they want.
Yeah.
As long as somebody else will pay it for them, that's what they want. But, and I hate asking for money.
Oh, yeah.
I really do.
I don't like it either.
Yeah. But it's www.northcarolinasportingdog.
NCSportingDog.com.
NCSportingdog.com. Let me correct myself. NCSportingdog.com. If you hunt with a dog, I don't care if it's a deer dog, bear dog, squirrel dog, duck dog, who'd I leave out? Rabbit. I got rabbit dogs.
Coon.
Rabbit dogs, coon dogs.
A lot of coon hunters.
If you hunt with a dog and you're not a member of this organization, you must not like what you're doing. You really must not. You should join. If you live, there's a hunting organization in your county. I'm sitting with the Association. It represents two counties. There's a local organization that represents two counties. find that local organization and come join it. If you want to do Onslow, contact me. I'll hook you up. But join that local organization. I don't care what kind of hunting you do. Join it. Because there's a whole lot of people that don't want us to hunt.
Well, if you don't want to join our organization, join Sporting Dog.
Yeah.
I mean, $40 a year.
$40 a year, and you got an attorney that'll go to Raleigh and fight for you.
I don't have to go there. I live there.
He did.
Have a hunt club should be a member.
Yeah.
Yeah.